At this time, we are welcomed by Illinois 7th District Congressional candidate Anabel Mendoza. Anabel, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome, welcome, welcome. You are our first guest in the studio.
Love it.
Yeah.
Now, you are the youngest candidate in the congressional race,
Yes.
right? You are a Gen Z candidate, right?
Yeah.
How does it feel being in the Democratic Party right now, being so young? Do you feel embraced by the party, or do you feel like some internal strife?
Oh, I think it's a little bit of both, but I think for the most part, my generation is the generation that is saying, hey, the Democratic Party needs to change big time. We are not loyal to Democratic leadership, especially when we see Democratic leadership actively, getting in the way of so much of what we know will benefit our lives, what will actually improve the lives of everyday people. And when we see them, create barriers for a lot of legislation that would bring meaningful investments back into our communities. So I think in that way, Gen Z is the generation that's going to Congress to shake things up, to hopefully revive the Democratic Party and what we actually stand for.
Yeah, it's almost like if you want to care about the future, you should probably be here for it, for a lot of the legislation.
No, I would agree with that. And I think what we're seeing right now is a national reckoning that is happening within the Democratic Party. That we know that even Democrats themselves are, many are bought, many are taking money from corporate PACs, from APAC, from special interests and dark money groups. And that is who's pulling the strings behind the scenes and making the decisions. And again, I think what my generation is coming in with is a level of moral clarity to say we're not taking a single penny from any of these entities because we know who we would be there to serve. And that is the everyday people who call, in this case, the 7th District home.
Yeah, and so talk a little bit about the 7th District. So where is the 7th District? And I like to ask, what do you think is working in the 7th District?
So the 7th District is perhaps one of the most unique districts here in Illinois, certainly, but also I would argue in the country. So for folks who don't know, the 7th District encompasses all of downtown Chicago, the Loop area, and it goes all the way south to West Englewood. And then so you're gonna go through Chinatown, you're gonna go through a little bit of Bronzeville, and you're, again, gonna go all the way down to West Englewood. And then from the Loop, you go west, and you're gonna go through the medical district, UIC, all the way out to North Lawndale, Austin, Oak Park, River Forest, Forest Park, Maywood, Westchester, even Broadview. The detention facility is also in this district.
I've heard of it.
Yes.
We're familiar for all the wrong reasons with Broadview.
Exactly. Well, Broadview is in the 7th District. And, I think many people don't know this, but the 7th District has the largest life expectancy gap than any other district in the country. You can live in West Englewood, and your life expectancy is 30 years less than if you live in Streeterville. Same district, same city, just a few miles apart, but entirely different life expectancies. And what I've long said and have made it a centerpiece of my campaign to bring attention to is that life expectancy gap is not by accident. We know that. It is quite literally been dictated by generations of policies that have not only segregated Black, brown, and immigrant communities to the south and west sides, but have also disinvested in those neighborhoods and have therefore resulted in this massive life expectancy gap where your zip code determines how long you're going to live.
So as a congressperson, what would you do to fix that inequality in Chicago?
Well, look, I think it is so much about how we tackle the social determinants of health. How do we actually ensure that people have housing that they can afford to live in and that is dignified and safe? There's affordable housing in East Garfield Park, for instance, and Harrison Courts is considered an affordable housing complex, and yet tenants inside are inhaling mold. Their walls, their ceilings are filled with mold. I've been inside. I have had sit-downs with the different tenants who have quite literally told me I would rather live on the CTA than live in this building. There's one tenant whose name is Jimmy and who has been very outspoken about his own story, who is living in standing water, does not have a functioning shower, does not have a functioning stove. And this is considered affordable, but oftentimes affordability means undignified. It means unsafe. It means completely something that anybody else would never accept for themselves. So why are we allowing our neighbors to live in these conditions? So affordable housing is absolutely something that I would tackle. We also need to make sure that there is investment in access to healthy, affordable food. We're seeing SNAP benefits being cut. We're seeing work requirements being added on that's going to jeopardize 400,000 Chicagoans and their access to SNAP. And so much of the South and West Sides, you have food deserts. You have areas that do not have access to local grocery stores, fresh produce. And I grew up on the Southwest side of Chicago. Food insecurity was something that I personally felt firsthand as a child growing up here.
Yeah, it's tough because you go out there and you see liquor store, Popeyes, all these fast food places, and it's like, damn, can I get an apple? Can we get a child a celery or a salad to eat or anything like that?
You get an apple pie.
You get an apple pie from McDonald's,
Right.
But it's that thing. I mean, one of our schools where we used to work in CPS, I had a student who was from the South Side and he had an apple, and I saw a child eat an apple for the first time. And it was like, I was like, how did you... Oh, like it just I lived a life and didn't even like catch that. So
yeah, well, I think Chicago is oftentimes the tale of two cities, and we know that.
Yeah.
Again, growing up on the Southwest side, I grew up in West Lawn, a working class, predominantly Latino neighborhood, but you see the disinvestment. I actually was just driving through West Lawn on my way to pick up a friend at Midway Airport, and you see the vacant lots. You see the trash that is left overflowing in neighborhoods, right? The type of neglect and disinvestment, you don't have to go far to see it. And that isn't something that should be normalized. It's not something that we should just simply accept. And it's why I've made it my mission in this campaign, and especially if I'm elected to Congress, to make sure that my constituents know that I am there to serve them. It's why I'm not taking a single penny from any outside interest, because I think the moment you do, that is when your values go out the door. That is when you are no longer there to answer your constituents. You're there to answer the donors. You're there to answer what it is that they want to prioritize, not what it is that the single mom or the family that is working 2-3 jobs to put food on the table is trying to, or is needing to improve their lives.
And so I agreed on all fronts, first of all. Hear, hear. But yeah, snap, snap. I wonder, is taxing the wealthiest Chicagoans, the wealthiest people in Illinois, more at a higher rate, right? Is that the easiest path to success you see for what we're talking about here?
I certainly believe that we need a progressive tax system in this country. Absolutely. The fact that the top 10% can hoard 3/4 of the country's wealth, again, the scales are clearly imbalanced.
Yeah.
Right.
And I want to be very clear that a progressive tax system where the ultra wealthy pay their fair share is not going to force the ultra wealthy to suddenly live a life on the streets. But it can make sure that a family doesn't lose their home, for instance, can put food on the table, can afford to pay off their student loans, right? All of these different things. That is what is helping to lift families up. And so I believe in that. But I also believe in investing in economic opportunity. We need to ensure that jobs are available for communities locally, that they're good paying, livable wages, not, the federal wage being $7 an hour, not something that no one can live off of, let alone a family. It needs to be between $25 to $30 an hour.
Yes.
And in addition to that, strong union jobs. It's why I support legislation like the PRO Act, so that people can unionize and they're not going to face retaliation from their employers as a result. And if they do, they're protected. So those are some of the things that I think are part of how we strengthen everyday families.
Now, my follow-up to that is, you're running for Congress.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with Congress. Congress is a broken, destitute place, right? It is a hellscape of sorts, and not much seems to be able to happen there. Now, we've heard people talk about issues that you're bringing to the forefront right now. Like, what are tangible ways that you think you can help move things in a different direction? Is there legislation, or is there anything specific you think that could get things to move differently than they are at the moment?
Well, I think one of the biggest areas, we know that Congress holds the power of the purse. A must-pass bill every year is our federal budget, is our appropriations bill. Working in the immigrant rights movement, I have seen the way that time where members of Congress are negotiating over what gets funded, what doesn't get funded, right? So much of what I've seen is members of Congress actively pushing for ICE and CBP to get more money. So one of my responsibilities, I would feel, is something at the congressional level, is to make sure that I'm utilizing that mechanism to ensure that we are funding the right things. Public education, healthcare, right? And that does mean pulling away funding from ICE and CBP. I strongly believe in abolishing those agencies.
Come on now, yeah.
But it also starts with making sure that we are not giving them a raise when they've just executed people in the streets.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Yes. It feels like it's like the most obvious thing, and then it feels like when you say it, it's like, wow, that's so refreshing to hear somebody actually put it out there. And another thing that I saw refreshing, you were planning for reparations, right?
Yes.
You know, talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Pay up, buddy.
Oh, man.
Look, I think it's far too late in the game for us. Like, we're playing catch up here.
Yes.
This should have been a conversation that was happening years ago. And again, when we look at the life expectancy gap, we look at the wealth gap, and it's not just a wealth gap, it's a racial wealth gap. Here in Chicago, the median household income wealth for a black family, do you all know what it is?
I'm going to guess 24,000.
Oh,
guess?
50,000?
It's $0.
Stop that.
I was closer.
You won.
I win.
Compared
The game where nobody wins.
The median,
I'm sorry, nobody won. You're right.
The median household wealth for a white family in Chicago, well over $200,000.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
damn.
racial wealth gap, again, this is generations of disinvestment. It is redlining that we've seen on the Southwest side,
Yes.
right? It is the housing injustice that have prevented black families, black Chicagoans as well, from being able to purchase and own land. And so reparations, I believe, is something that, again, this should have been a conversation
Long
that's
overdue.
been exactly long overdue. And we have seen the bottom line, and the truth is that direct cash payments are the most efficient and effective way to close that racial wealth gap.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear that for me, and how I've thought about reparations, is that the direct cash payment should be able to close that gap between what I just shared with you, between the median household income wealth between a black family and a white family. But in addition to that, it is a net benefit for all of us here in Chicago if we were to be able to pass something like reparations at the federal level. At minimum, that's going to bring $60 billion worth of investment back into our city. That means people who are able to not only buy homes, but they're able to start small businesses in their communities. That means more local jobs. This is about economic opportunity. And I think that, again, economic opportunity has been long denied to black Chicagoans and black Americans all across the country.
That's right, because it's to the point where the dollar doesn't stay in the household in the black neighborhood that long. It goes so fast, so that's where you don't have any money or annual income because you don't have the opportunities. You need to use that money to go, okay, well, I got to go buy fast food and the price has gone up, but my minimum wage is the same. And then you got to buy things because you're stressed, so now you need a vice or something to take care of that. And then before you know it, boom, you're clutching on till Friday to hopefully get another fucking check.
Oh yeah, everything is going up while your wages are staying stuck, right? Everything is going up. And so people are struggling just to get through another day.
Yeah.
And it is the responsibility of anybody who is seeking office to be laser focused on how you're going to improve people's lives. What are the solutions that are actually going to make someone's life better? And what we've seen, I mean, you alluded to this, how messed up Congress is because how much of our elected officials, again, have been bought, are not there to actually think through and problem solve how to make people's lives better. They're not even answering that question. They're focused on what is the agenda of the biggest super PACs that have funded my campaign that are keeping me in office. I have to appease them. They're telling me to vote yes on this, vote no on that, abstain from this, don't go to that meeting, right? They're there to answer to them.
Well, you're running it at arguably like the best possible time right now. America hates Donald Trump and the Republican Party. I mean, polling numbers in the ground. We're recording this one day removed from the early primary votes that happened down in Texas and South Carolina. I'm from Houston.
Okay.
Originally. We both in horror watched the primaries play out last night in Texas because, there was some, 30,000 foot view here. Yeah, Republicans didn't want county wide voting, right? The Supreme Court stepped in and said you can extend the vote for Democrats. Then, a judge stepped in. Then the Supreme Court stepped in and said, no, that can't happen. We got to put some votes aside. And Republicans made a mess of the Democratic primary vote in Texas last night. And now come the main elections here, the national elections, it's going to be easier for Republicans to say, look how messy elections are. We need to come in, nationalize voting, right? Your primary is in 6 days. Two-part question. How concerned are you about more of what we'll just call rat fuckery from Republicans when it comes to voting, right? And two, when it comes time for the general election in November, are you worried that because you and others are coming in with this kinds of like righteous indignation and wind at your sails, that they're going to try to rob you of the chance to even make the changes that you're talking with us about here today?
Y'all remember how long it took Adelita Grijalva to get sworn into office after she won?
Sure.
That is a fear that I do have of how they might try to stall people who have won their elections from actually then getting into office. And, I think that those are things that we should not take lightly or normalize, especially under a time where we have a sitting president who is threatening a third term in office. And I know some people might think that, oh, he's just joking. But again, we need to stop believing that he is joking about anything that
take
he
his shit
says.
seriously.
He's not funny.
He's
an unfunny human.
Exactly. And again, that threat, like, we need to honestly put ourselves in those shoes. What will happen if he runs for a third term? But I think going back to your point about, what happened in Texas, what could potentially happen here, we know that they are actively trying to suppress people's votes. They are actively trying to undermine our fair electoral process. They constantly sow lies about election fraud if they don't agree with the results of an election, right? They had this whole thing in Minneapolis that we'll take ICE out of your city only if you hand over your voter rolls, right? And so we're seeing all of these efforts by this administration to continue to really chokehold so much of our ability and our access to the ballot. One of the things I've been concerned about with the presence of ICE and CBP across the country, and especially in cities like Chicago, like Minneapolis, has been whether or not they will try to intimidate people at the polls, whether or not they will try to station federal agents outside of polling locations. Do
you think they will?
I don't know. I think that it's always a possibility. Yeah. We've seen this administration already threaten to bring back 3 times as many agents to the city of Chicago than they did during Operation Midway Blitz. So I'm not ruling anything off the table, but I also know that many people are feeling frightened and yet also taking action to go to the polls together, right? To make sure they're with a group of people or to exercise their early voting abilities, right? To make sure that their vote is getting in on time. We saw the different restrictions that happened with the mail-in ballots and everything that was going on there. So I think people are aware of what's happening and are taking, the steps needed to make sure that their vote counts.
Well, it's the Republicans playing in our face, if you will. They keep playing in our face. They're obviously cheating and doing it outright.
Right.
Outside of voting, what do we do besides try to kick them in the ass? Because I feel like that's what I want to do. My gut is like, man, I want to go out there and just fucking, you know what I'm saying?
Black Panther EJ Cameron over here.
Yeah, Cub. I'm a Cub. I'm a black.
he has like a tinier black beret.
Oh, a little bit smaller.
He's got a Nerf gun.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
I'm getting this image now. It's incredible. No, I think you're right that so many people are feeling this righteous rage right now, given everything that is going on in our country. And demands leaders who are going to stand 10 toes down on what actually matters and are not going to budge. And I think that so much of what has gone wrong with the Democratic Party is their weakness, the fact that they lack a spine in so many ways, that they will say one thing out of their mouth and then do an action completely different. And I think that is what excites me about, especially my generation, that has inherited so many different compounding crises, and we're fed up. We are done being told, this is just how politics works, get used to it. We are like, no, we're not going to get used to this. In fact, we're gonna be taking bold, strategic, unapologetic actions to actually show and prove to you what is possible. And I think we've all known this. It has always been young people who have led movements and who have pushed the envelope forward of what other people thought was possible. And that includes the young people in the Black Panther Party, right? That includes young people in the civil rights movement. I think, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, he got his start as a teenager when he was 18 years old. His youth organizing, his ability as a young person to see injustice and say, no, that's wrong. There's no sugarcoating it. Yeah. That is just wrong. And that is the kind of righteousness that, again, young people are bringing to this moment. And that is what gives me some semblance of hope that things will improve, because I think that we are holding people to account. We're holding people's feet to the fire. And we're also not loyal to someone just because they're a Democrat. You can be an incumbent, and we can still rally for the opposition that's running against you, because that is a stronger progressive, true progressive force coming in.
One more topic I'd like to bring up, then we're going to play some fun games.
Yeah,
we're going to lighten the mood a little bit. As much as I fear Republicans and everything they do, there is one other looming threat that maybe scares me a little bit more, and that's artificial intelligence. AI is this looming threat. I used to work in journalism. I guess I still do, as I'm sitting here with you right now.
I also used to work in journalism. I got my training as an investigative reporter from Medill, yeah.
What did you investigate?
Well, I looked into the COVID-19 outbreak inside Stateville, Illinois prison, and how it was impacting incarcerated populations. And then I also looked at the conditions that unaccompanied immigrant children were facing in federal detention facilities. And that through those stories, I realized, I cannot be quote unquote objective about this.
It's like, wow, so you always cared about people.
Yeah.
There's no way that I was gonna, I was told even by my editors that my pieces, my stories read too much like advocacy. And I was like, let me take this as a hint that, you know what, I do have fucking strong opinions about this.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
we should.
Yeah.
And we absolutely should. When our taxpayer dollars are funding these prison cells or these facilities that kids are being held in without their parents. They've been separated from their parents. Yeah, we should have opinions about that. In fact, we should all be strongly against it.
Yeah.
I covered professional wrestling.
Love it.
So
great.
Similar stakes. But even there, it's like I tell him, and we talk to other people about it. You pull the log up, right, and you start to find out all the stuff that's underneath it, right? A lot of people aren't going to take the time to really go investigate these kinds of subjects, right? You kind of have to show them that. And it is very hard. I couldn't stay objective about it because Vince McMahon is allegedly sex trafficking, and it's tough for me to sit around and talk about what happened on Monday Night Raw. Right. So with that said, the reason I brought up AI is I've watched all my journalism buddies, all my graphic design buddies. The past 5 years, it's a wasteland. They're all open for work on LinkedIn now, right?
Yeah.
Though it started there, it's rolling up. White collar jobs are on the horizon.
Acting jobs.
EJ is going to be a hologram soon.
They're just going to keep putting my face in the background.
Oh, no.
I sign a bunch of stuff and make sure I'm like, no.
That's good that you did that.
Yeah.
How concerned are you about AI? Am I overselling AI or what? And do you have any legislation or ideas about how we can combat the rise of AI?
Yeah, I don't think you are overselling the stakes of it at all. I think you're spot on, and I think there are so many different harms that AI is bringing. And one of them, that I think at the core probably terrifies me the most is the lack of human connection. and the lack of compassion and empathy that gets built when you're in community with other people, when you're in community with your neighbors, versus when you're in community with AI. That's obviously not the same kind of community. And I think we've all seen those really horrifying stories of AI relationships and things like that kind of make my skin crawl.
Yeah.
But we know that to power AI, you need these massive data centers as well, right? And I think we've seen a strong push for people to say, no, I don't want these data centers in my community. That happened in, I believe it was Naperville recently. One of the things that I support is a moratorium on any of these data centers being created until these companies can come before Congress and answer the very hard questions. It is congressional responsibility. One of the main areas of responsibility that you have as a member of Congress is your oversight. It is to make sure that what is getting implemented, that you are assessing the risks and the harms, and that you are doing everything possible to mitigate those harms. You don't want to just unleash something without any guardrails and then be like, oops.
Sorry, Skynet.
Yeah,
and it's not
don't
just,
Jurassic Park it.
Exactly, and it's not just, right, I think part of what terrifies me is that lack of empathy and compassion that gets built when you're actually in touch with other people. But we cannot deny also the deeply harmful environmental impacts that these data centers that power AI have. And of course, that has a racial component too. I mean, environmental
I'm starting to feel
racism.
really bad right now, guys.
I mean, not trying to, but I think
you're right.
That's why we need a
It takes so
moratorium
much water
on these data centers, because one, it should not be something that raises people's everyday working families' electricity bills, and then people who are already stretched thin now having to pay higher electricity bills. It should not be everyday people who are bearing the brunt of those costs. These companies that are trying to put up data centers, they should be required to build those data centers only using green renewable energy to do so that it doesn't have an outsized devastating impact on already a horrible climate change that is happening, right? In addition to the fact that there needs to be guardrails to ensure that AI is not abused, right? We've seen AOC has spearheaded a bill about the use of AI to put out photos, pretty revealing photos of people without their consent.
Fully revealing.
Exactly.
Not even partially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so all of this is what I mean by the oversight responsibility that I would have as a member of Congress to put those guardrails up. It is not responsible to just unleash something into the world and not care about the consequences of it or who it harms.
Yeah. Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
We're going to have them raptors up in here.